Hello and welcome to Super Rugby Round 15 preview. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for predictions and opinion. And to join me to go through all of the games, I have the man who's behind the Tribe Sports app, bringing you all of that content across all different sports. It is Ryan. How you doing, sir?
Yep, pretty good.
So you guys got yourselves lined up with commentators for every single Super Rugby game this weekend?
For Super Rugby, yep, for sure. That's generally priority number one. We're scraping the barrel, I think, for some of the other events this weekend, but we'll get there.
Because this weekend we have the Pro 14 final between Leinster and Munster, the Gallagher Premiership semi-finals between Saracens, Gloucester and Exeter and Northampton Saints, plus all of the top 14 action. So, yes, lots of the rugby going on.
Yep.
But Tribe Sports app is where you can, if you can't get in front of the TV, the best place to follow the action.
We've got all the London Sevens action as well, so that'll be happening all weekend. So if you like the seven-a-side code.
Is that as well as I forgot. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's true. That is also going on. But back to, as you say, the most important competition in the world. This is what makes and breaks empires. Maybe not. We kick off on Friday night with the Chiefs versus the Reds. Or should we really say the wounded Chiefs? I mean, 16 players missing, not available for selection. It's getting a bit crazy in Hamilton, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's almost come a season after I expected it. Last year I thought, they had a lot of departures. They had a lot of injuries as well last year, but they kind of, for whatever reason, managed to ride that out and still have a successful year. But this year, just too many. And key guys too. So you lose the likes of Retallick and McKenzie, and that's the basis of your team, really. It's the two guys you build around.
It is, and then when you also have to rest Angus Tuavo and Antoinette Brown for All Blacks reasons, you lose players like Ty Falcon for the whole season, and then you lose your kind of backup engine room of Michael Allardyce and Mitchell Brown, and you are really starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Having to reach out to Bay of Plenty for backup loose forwards has got to be an embarrassment. Or was that a tad harsh?
Well, they're part of the franchise, so I guess, sort of every team has their pool of players that they call on, and but yeah, the Chiefs have just had to go, as they're at the bottom, they're below the barrel. they're under the ground. It's but I think with that, you get a bit of opportunity comes from it for some guys that can kind of step up in a situation they maybe wouldn't have expected at the start of the year. So I guess that's the opportunity for those guys.
It is, and the really cool thing is, the good thing for All Blacks fans is to see Sam Cane is back, starting in the number 6 jersey after coming off the bench against the Blues last weekend. We still have a bit of a lightweight engine room containing Jesse Parity in that number 4 jersey, who's really a 6, to be honest. It means that they don't have perhaps a bit of a lightweight at scrum time. And then Alex Nakavelli coming in that 12 jersey has got a lot to live up to, with Antoinette Brown being basically the key to this side offensively by taking it to the line with his offloads. That sort of part of their game is going to be, it's going to be severely tested.
I've been impressed by Nankivell this year in kind of limited opportunities. There's been a few games where he's stepped in for Leonard Brown. There's one game, I can't remember who it was against, it was in South Africa, where Leonard Brown was a late withdrawal and Nankivell came in and performed well. Might have been against the Sharks. I'm not, apologies if that's incorrect. But he's a guy that I think almost, you get these guys who are kind of, they're hindered by their utility value, and I think he's one of them where he gets pigeonholed as a guy that can sit on the bench in the 23 jersey and sort of cover all positions, and when he's been called on to start in centre or second five, he's done well. Obviously, no Anton Leonard-Brown, but another a guy who gets an opportunity.
Yeah, the guy is starting to look a bit better as well. I think could be key in this game. Solomon Alamalo, someone last year people were talking about as potential All Black, came back, had two games where he basically couldn't catch the ball. But against the Blues, started to look a bit better. So with game time under his belt, we could be seeing some better play from him as well. Flipping over to the Reds, though, they've decided to rest Samu Karevi for this game. Is that all they go forward gone?
Yeah. I mean, he's the one back that provides something a bit different for them. He's the one back with international quality. You look through the rest of the team there, and it's a lot of sort of young, unproven guys and a couple of journeymen. When the likes of Matt McGahn and Bryce Hegarty. I mean, it's a pretty uninspiring side. Interesting too that they've left Scott Higginbottom on the bench for the second week in a row, preferring Angus Scott Young at number 8 and playing Luke Insakai Loto on the side of the scrum. So, yeah, this is an interesting game.
It is, and we talk about. We've got Duncan Paia'au has only had game time because of injuries. Now he becomes the senior back at 12. Seb Wildman outside him in 13 jersey. It's his debut. On the bench, Scott Malaula and Liam McNamara both in for their debuts as well, which shows you, and that's in the 21 and 23 jersey, which shows you that back line really has got no experience in it at all. The only experienced player there really is Sefa Naivalu, who is out on the left wing, which limited opportunity from the wing to kind of run operations. So, yeah, this is a very inexperienced back line. The forwards are going to have to do it up front, which is why I'm a bit surprised to see that there are no Smiths starting in the propping positions, and JP Smith isn't in the side at all. So, I'd have thought this would be the game to roll out your first choice 8 to try and get the job done, but they don't even seem to be doing that this week.
Yeah, and especially given that, as you said before, the Chiefs pack pretty lightweight, effectively playing 5 loosies, with Ardron and Pareti in the second row. So, yeah, not a lot of quality in that red side. Probably outside of Taliana Tupo and Isaac Rodder. So.
Okay, so we've managed to talk this down to being the injured team versus the not very good team. So after we've talked the game down, who are you backing for this one?
For this one, I think Chiefs.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with the home 7. Side. Yeah, Chiefs by 6.
So there we go. So Chiefs by just a score is what we're looking at there. We then head over the ditch for the Brumbies versus the Bulls. The Brumbies with a couple of interesting selections here. Good to see Rory Arnold back. I mean, they need that sort of weight in the engine room, and also Rob Valentini, comes back onto the bench after being out injured for a long time in the 21 jersey. So the Brumbies running a 6-2 bench for this game, which. So they're expecting a battle up front from the Bulls.
I think that's to be expected in terms of what you expect the Bulls to come at you with. Probably a team that plays, I guess, an older sort of style of rugby, a more structured 10-man game. Even though they do have some decent outside backs, it all revolves around their pack and Andre Pollard. So perhaps that's why the Brumbies are going with the 6-2 split. And I mean, if we're talking about that...
That's a bit of a problem for them, though, isn't it? Because Henri Pollard is missing due to a calf strain and has gone back to South Africa.
Yeah, wow, that's true. But I mean, that's their general game plan. I don't expect much will change with Mane Lebok at 10. And it really didn't when he came in a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, and I think, we're talking about the first game being quite hard to predict between two teams that aren't firing as well. This is just hard to predict because you got two teams that are hard to predict. I mean, what are you going to get from the Brumbies and the Bulls each week? This could be a cracking game, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's, as you say, one of those could be ones. I mean, you look at the Brumbies team on paper, and you're going, we've got Sio, Faianga, Alatoa. That's a decent front row. We've got Slipper to come off the bench as well. I mean, there's experience there. Arnold and Carter could be starting for the Wallabies in the engine room, which means there's quality there. Sure, there's no Pocock, but you've still got Pete Samu, Brown, Valentini. We've already talked about coming off the bench. Christian Leofano there with Simone Kurandrani could really cause some havoc if they get some front foot ball. And with Pulu, Spate and Banks, they've got some pace there to score tries. I mean, on paper, a good team. Admittedly, if Christian Leofano goes down, then Tom Wright to pull the strings. Suddenly it looks shaky. So there's not necessarily much depth in the backs, but yeah, potentially an exciting team. Look on the other side of it, and again that pack, Vermeulen, everyone has obviously heard about, but but Schumann and Lindenberg makes a great loose trio. Simon is in there in the second row. Schalk Brits, and also actually sorry, a hat tip to Goboka. Sorry if I've mispronounced that. That's his 50th Super Rugby start or Super Rugby game for the Bulls. So he's reached his half century. So yeah, you say a pack that's got the power, and then you got players like Speckman out wide who basically plays sevens on a 15s pitch.
And if you caught their game last week, he did some crazy stuff, and it was 15-man 7-a-side, and I kind of applaud sort of his style because he gets limited opportunities in this team. I mean, I think if he was on the end of a perhaps bit more expansive kind of back line inside, he'd probably relish that opportunity. But with the Bulls, a lot of the time it's when they've got advantage and they're thinking, well, we're going to be kicking for poles anyway, so let's try and get Speckman the ball while we can and see what he can do. And then they go back to the penalty and bang it over. So, yeah, but he did some outrageous things last week. I was impressed last week with RJ Stainman as well. He's a guy that the Springboks, I think, will be reliant on come World Cup time. Is that one of their big abrasive locks and gets around the park. He's wild and woolly. He's kind of that old school South African lock, and yeah, he was impressive last week too. And he's that real quality. Him and Vermeulen in the pack. They're playing really well at the moment. So
you've just talked about the Bulls.
Well, I've been talking them up all year, so they haven't really let me down so far.
But the Brumbies haven't lost at home since the opening round against the Rebels, and they've won 4 of their last 5 games. So I'm going Brumbies by 5. Which way are you going?
I'm going for the Bulls in an upset. Bulls by 3.
Oh, now, if you're someone who likes who reckons that there's meaning behind things, then here is the record of the Bulls since the 9th of March. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. You know what comes next. So the Bulls have not managed to put together 2 wins back to back since the 9th of March. So there you go. So my yes, they say correlation doesn't mean causation, but you never know. I've not seen any teams announced yet for the Sunwolves and the Rebels, but Amanaki Leah Mafi is in the travelling squad. Are we actually going to see him come up, see him get a run on for the Sunwolves, do you think?
Be interesting if he does against his old side, and especially with the drama that went down last year. So I kind of hope we do, to be honest. It's always nice to have a bit of a subplot for a game like this. I mean, the Sunwolves have just fallen off a cliff, haven't they? So
they have fallen off a cliff, interestingly enough, these two sides probably know each other better than any other two sides, or know the Sunwolves, because the Sunwolves and the Rebels have actually signed a working relationship about sharing stuff between the two of them, and they do actually work quite closely. So this is a bit of an interesting one. Why you would bring Matthew back for this game, of all games, I don't know, but it definitely will create column inches, if nothing else. For this one, luckily the person he allegedly beat up and he's in court about has left the Rebels as well. So we're not going to see a fisticuffs on the bench on the pitch. I wouldn't have thought from it, but yes, we'll see about that one. Keep an eye out on obviously Richard Freeman's Twitter account. He'll let us know what the lineup is as soon as it happens. But so you talk about the Sunwolves have fallen off a pitch, but fallen off a cliff. But what about the Rebels? One win in their last 5 games. They looked like they were running away with the Australia Conference, and now they're basically throwing it away as we head towards the pointy end of the season.
Yeah, and I mean it's really hard to pinpoint why. I guess they've generally named settled sides, and maybe they needed a bit more sort of refreshing and rotation. The interesting thing is, I think those early weeks they kind of missed some of their key players too. So had guys like Reece Hodge and Dane Haylett-Petty had time on the sidelines. You'd think, hey, we're travelling well, we get those guys back, we're going to get better, and the opposite has happened. So it's hard to know. And I know I watched a few of their games early on where I thought the result didn't really reflect the performance, and you kind of wonder if maybe there was a little bit of a false impression given about just how good they were. One game in particular that I think about is the win over the Brumbies, where they were getting beat up at scrum time. Bit of refereeing momentum came their way, thanks to Will Guinea getting in the pocket of the ref, and that kind of those kind of wins were really good for them early on in building that momentum, but perhaps just kind of gave a false impression of just how good they are. Big chance though to get it back on, the train back on the tracks this week against the Sunwolves though.
But they haven't won outside Australia this season as well.
Great point.
So
they should have beaten the Lions, but they haven't won.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
That's right.
So with all of that, the Rebels only won out in the last 5, haven't won outside of Australia. Do you have? Can you back the Sunwolves, or you think that's an upset too far?
Well, it's interesting you brought up the win-loss record of the Bulls, because I'm going to go through the Sunwolves' last 7 games, which they're all losses.
Yes,
but loss by 13 plus, loss by 12 and under, loss by 13 plus, loss by 12 and under, loss by 13 plus, loss by 12 and under, loss by 13 plus, loss by 12 and under. That's the last 8 games.
So the Rebels lost by 13 plus, are you?
No, the other way. So they lost by 13 plus last week.
Okay.
This week they lose by 12 and under.
So I've gone Rebels by 3.
That fits. I go Rebels by 7.
Then, the big game of the weekend for us, Crusaders versus Blues, as we're both Blues fans.
Yes.
So again, I don't think I've not seen a Crusaders side yet. They're funnily enough, their media people are lying rather low at the moment.
They are one of the worst teams for advertising a lineup. They haven't been too bad recent weeks. They normally whack it on Twitter, but there's some weeks where I'm waiting for it on Twitter and end up having to dig deep into the depths of the internet to find it.
Oh, the Lions are worse. The Lions, you trying to find the Lions one on their website is so slow and out of date. It's unreal.
Or when they post them on Twitter using the players' Twitter handles, that's always fun. It's like number 5 at Xman47. It's like, who the hell's that? It's Marvin Ori or whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
So we haven't seen the Crusaders one. Obviously, the big question about the Crusaders is going to be how much has the off-field issues caused them, because Richard Mwanga, I think, is one of the 3 players, and I've forgotten who the other 2 are now off the top of my head. Bridge?
George Bridge, and there's a couple of other names floated around. David Havili.
And we've seen how key Richie Mwanga is to this side. So yeah, if he's being distracted, which he's going to be, let's be honest, I don't think we're going to see the Crusaders at their peak for this game. Looking at the Blues side, though, 11 players missing through injury. It's not quite as bad as the Chiefs, but not far off. The Blake Gibson, Dalton Papilehi combination gets broken again because Papilehi this time gets concussion. They just don't seem to be able to keep any of their combinations on the pitch.
I was going to say it's not as bad as the Chiefs because they're not missing any Mackenzies or Italics. So that.
Well, they don't have any Mackenzies or Italics in the first place.
That's exactly right. I guess the 2 big missing ones are James Parsons, so he's back on the bench after being a late withdrawal last week. Carl Tuinukuafu's not there. I didn't see any news on him. He pulled out last week with illness, so whether maybe they're using this as a rest weekend or...
Well, he's officially listed as illness again on the squad release. Some people would say that Matt Moulds is a bigger loss than James Parsons, and they wish James Parsons wasn't fit. But that's perhaps
I'm not one of those people.
You're not? Okay.
Sonny Bill Williams would be probably the biggest, but
yeah.
But the midfield's playing well, so.
Yep. So we've got Hodgman, Apasai, Tongafasi in the front row. Tuipulotu and Scott Scrafton, so that's good. Having the first choice locks. Tom Robinson comes back in the place of Papilehi, so that's not exactly, and he's the rookie of the year so far in New Zealand, so that's not such a big loss. Gibson, captain, obviously, Nikiriawani. 31st consecutive Super Rugby game for him, for the Blues. Ruru gets the nod ahead of Pulu with knock injured. Harry Plummer continues to show us that he can't kick. Marnonu, TJ Fiani with Rico Iwani, Caleb Clark and Milani Nanai in the back 3. So a very settled side. I think Tom Robinson's probably the only change from last week.
Yeah, and Lenny Apasai comes in at hooker. I thought last week too, and credit to Leon McDonald, because how often do we see coaches just make changes for change's sake? And quite often, inadvertently, I guess, shift the momentum of a game by taking off the wrong guys. Last week, the Blues, Hodgman and Tuongafasi played the whole game at prop. And Harry Plummer played the whole game at 10. So, despite the fact that he couldn't kick his goals, I thought he played really well otherwise, it's kind of the typical Blues conundrum, isn't it? That you get a 10 who's playing in decent form, but leaves points on the park. And maybe it's why they keep kicking to the corner instead of taking gift threes. Because they can't trust them to kick it.
Yeah, no, he is one of the. Yeah, and look, I was being a bit harsh by saying, yeah, we learn he can't kick again. He's kicking for Auckland in the -10 Cup last year was decent, so we know he can kick, but obviously clearly his radar's just off this year. And when you say that those two guys stayed on for the full game, that's probably because people don't know who Retinar and Lee are as far as props go. The Retinar is a name that does ring a bell for some reason. I can't think why though. But
He's played for the Māori All Blacks, Asa Renata, so he's got a little bit of experience. And he's been trotting around for Auckland in the -10 Cup for probably 3 or 4 seasons now.
Yeah, but and Lua Lee?
That's Tavita Lee's brother, which is probably his biggest claim to fame.
Well, that's.
But he impressed last year with Harbour in the -10 Cup. That was his first season, so he's pretty rookie.
Yeah.
And yeah, not a lot of experience there. Different type of player to his brother, obviously, being a prop and not a winger. But he's a promising talent, so I think they will get minutes this week. Probably when the Blues are down by 20 points.
That was good.
Did I say that out loud?
You did say that one out loud, yes. So I don't think I'm just trying to remember what I went for. I've not been that. So a couple of things here. The Blues haven't won an away game all season, which obviously doesn't help them. I've gone Crusaders by 15 on that one. Even though the Crusaders, I mean, they've had 2 draws in their last 3 games as well, so it's not like they're in startling form.
Yeah, and the Blues haven't beaten a New Zealand team away since I think it's 1732 or something.
I thought you were talking about the score, 1732, not the year.
I forget how long ago it was, but it's a while back. I think you're mad if you pick the Blues, so I'm going Blues by 6.
Oh, dearie me. And last time I looked, they were paying over $4 on the TAB. So, yes, you are mad. So there's that one. Just a little sort of half-time team talk from me is that my latest For Your Ears Only for my supporters over at patreon.com/DrivingMaul is looking at the number of players that left Super Rugby after the 2015 Rugby World Cup and how many we've got leaving after 2019 Rugby World Cup. So are we seeing a bigger exodus? And there's a lot of noise about this, especially out of South Africa as to who's leaving, or are the numbers actually more even or even lower than 2015? You can go over there, and for as little as $1 a month, you can listen to my where I list all the players and we go through and look at how positionally it's different as the type of player that that Europe is shopping for nowadays. Which I found to be quite interesting. So go and have a look at that. That's over there. Link down below in the notes. And actually, Steinman was the guy that reminded me to say that from the last game. Waratahs versus the Jaguares then at Bankwest Stadium. Where is Bankwest Stadium?
So that's the new stadium in Western Sydney, which looks amazing.
Ah, yes.
Especially when the Parramatta Eels are packing it out with, close to 30,000 fans. Doesn't look nearly as good when the Waratahs play there in front of 27 people. But still an impressive looking venue. I'm actually going to be there later in the year, not for a rugby game, but for an NRL game. But, yeah, it looks good. It's the exact kind of venue that Auckland should have down near the waterfront.
So what? Under the water, like the one the design we saw. Now, I mean, yeah, no, actually, sorry, yes, now I do remember this one. This one is actually a rectangular stadium. It's not an oval, which is nice.
Yeah.
So you actually get somewhere near. So if you go to the game, you can actually see the pitch.
And massive steep stands.
Mm. So even when it's not full, even when they've got sort of the nine to 12,000 that the Waratahs get, they still get a decent atmosphere because everyone's so close and on top of the pitch as well. So it is, decent place. Probably the best place the Waratahs actually play, to be honest. So absolutely no news again on the lineups that I've seen. for this game. So clearly, the Waratahs have still got the flower issue hanging over them, which is causing unrest amongst the players, as we've seen more announcements this week about the Players Association having a kind of discussions amongst themselves as to how they can talk about religious things in public, and that sort of stuff. So it's not all honey and sunlight or cheese, whatever it is, off the pitch. I've gone all Winnie the Pooh on you.
Rainbows and butterflies.
Rainbows, butterflies. There we go. For Jaguares, I mean, wow, what a great sort of push the Highlanders close, beat the Hurricanes. I mean, they're on a bit of a roll, aren't they?
Yeah, and I mean, wow was just who saw last week coming. That just you kind of watch.
I got 0 out of 6 with my predictions last week.
You didn't pick the Blues. I mean, as I said to a mate of mine who comes to me and says, "Oh, what do you reckon for picks this week?" And I say, "Well, you pick the Crusaders and you pick the Hurricanes, and then you toss 5 coins, 4 coins last week, and that didn't work." So that's why he picked the Chiefs.
I was actually hosting a show at at a bar here in Hamilton for last week. So
you picked the Chiefs for your personal safety. That
yes,
I can understand that. Look, the Jaguares. That's. I think they've always had this kind of potential, being effectively an international side, that if they could just kind of click and just kind of get used to the rigors of international travel and having to go to Africa every 2 or 3 weeks, and then these trips down under. Once they kind of adjusted to that, there's always this possibility that, hey, maybe they could be a successful Super Rugby side. And I think we're just starting to see that now, that they're not so much daunted by the travel. They're effectively rotating their side rather than we have seen in the past. They kind of would make mass changes and just trot out almost a B team for certain games. This year they're more sort of taking guys out, added some in. They've brought in some new talent this year. I would have said losing Nicolas Sanchez was going to be almost impossible to replace. Just hasn't been the case. They've really, with Diaz Bonilla and Miotti, have found 2 decent Super Rugby 10s, and on the back of a pretty decent pack and a good loose trio, they're playing great rugby, and they've
And one of the things that's interests me is that they've, well, at least before last weekend, they were bottom of the offloading stats for Super Rugby. So they changed their style from when they first arrived in Super Rugby, where they basically were offloading anything and everything. Now they're playing much more they were playing much more of an Irish style from a couple of years ago, where it was about having a quick clear out rather than offloading to get quick ball. And that means that your players are in a different position structurally as you head towards the breakdown each time. So it doesn't. If you're there for the offload, you can't clear out quickly because you're not in the right place for a clear out. So, but then against the Hurricanes, they equalled the Hurricanes with 11 offloads each, which for me signalled that they were changing their style depending on who they were playing, which was interesting to see. So a versatile team. I think especially with that lightweight pack that the Tars have, I'm back in the Jaguares by 5. And just so you know, the Tars have only had 1 game all season that's been decided by double figures. So I definitely think this will be a close one.
Yeah, I think the Jaguares are the team that probably should win.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a sneaky feeling this might be a bit of a hangover game after last week. So I'm going to tip the Waratahs to sneak home by 6.
By 6. There we go. But yeah, definitely within single figures, folks. We then head over to South Africa for the Stormers versus the Highlanders. Now, again, no kind of news on the old selections. But this is a massive game for the Stormers. They sit last in the Africa Conference and 12th in the combined conference, but they're only 3 points behind the Highlanders. So if they win this one, they go above the Highlanders, who are currently in one of the wildcard positions.
The Highlanders too have played an extra game, so that sort of adds a bit of importance to it as well. They wouldn't want to slip out of the top 8, knowing that they've still got another bye to come, where a lot of the teams have already had their second bye. So, yeah, this is massive.
The Stormers' last 4 games have been decided by a combined 8 points, with a draw and 3 very close wins. So again, if this one is decided by more than a handful of points, I'd be very surprised. But it's one that I think could pretty much go either way.
Yeah, and I think the Highlanders maybe last week. I know there was a bit of frustration with the refereeing against the Lions. That was a game they probably would have wanted to kind of sneak home with. They were in it for long periods, but just couldn't get the job done. I always feel when you go to South Africa, if you can pick up that first game, it just takes so much pressure off the second one, because you ideally want to come away with one win, particularly the New Zealand teams. I mean, the New Zealand conference is so cutthroat. And
this year, but not this year. This year,
I was going to say this year, the battle was really not for the New Zealand conference, but more for those final 4 spots, the wildcard spots. Taking out the fact that the Hurricanes or Crusaders are going to get the first one. So, yeah, this is big. Hard to call.
Yeah, my coin flip landed on the Stormers side by 3. But maybe I'm being swayed a bit like the Jaguares game by recent results or by last week's result. But yeah, that's the way I've gone.
I'm gonna go the Highlanders for the narrow win, 3 points.
Then, if you thought we had a hard one to call, then we get to this one: Sharks versus Lions. 7th hosting 6th in the combined table. So basically 2 sides on. I can't remember if there's a 1 point between them or they're on the same amount of points. Basically, we have basically the most talented side potentially in Super Rugby, but definitely the most talented side in Africa in the Africa Conference, hosting the best coach side in the Africa Conference. The Sharks basically badly coached, and the Lions basically just lost way too much of their talent overseas over the last couple of years. Last time out, the Sharks blitzed the Lions at home and won by a big margin by just not letting the Lions have the ball at all. And the Sharks scored 40 odd points, but left about 30 odd points on the pitch with missed opportunities. So the Sharks need the ball a lot because they will make a lot of mistakes. But the Lions showed last weekend they can play against Highlanders. So what are your thoughts about this one?
I think the Lions are another team that you just kind of don't know what you're going to get week to week. And I think they've tried to embrace this kind of expansive, high tempo game, and sometimes it just backfires for them. They make errors, they gift ball away, they leave points out there, they don't take shots. But when it clicks, they're the kind of side that can just kind of run rampant, and they've got some talented loose forwards who sort of pop up and act as good links between the forwards and backs. So kind of like Quagga Smith and Marnus Schoeman. But yeah, well, how much do you read into that game at Ellis Park? 42-5. The Sharks have got the blueprint for how to beat them, it would seem.
Yep. And I was trying to remember which game it was earlier. It was the Stormers playing the Blues, not the Sharks. So I was going to quote something, but that would not be relevant, so I won't bother. So I've gone Sharks by 3. But it appears that they've spent pretty much all of their recent coaching on defence, and that their attack is really pretty toothless. But trying to score against the Sharks has been really difficult, as the teams like the Crusaders found. So I'd say I think the Sharks spent all their time on defence, and it's going to be. So I'm just going to go Sharks by 3 in what I think will be a low-scoring game.
I've got them a little bit more comfortable, so I'm going to go Sharks by 12. Probably reading into that first game a little bit, but at home against the Lions.
Yeah, you got to remember in that first game they shelled 3 tries in the first 20 minutes before they scored. So if they don't get a lot of the ball, they're going to be in. Yes, we'll see. Thank you very much, sir. Why don't you just tell us again, remind us where they can get all your wonderful Tribe Sports app coverage.
Yeah, so download the Tribe Sports app in the App Store or the Play Store. It's free. It's got all the sport you want. So not only all the rugby that we discussed earlier, but all your NRL, NBA coming up to finals. So that's big. Got a whole bunch of interesting leagues. Domestically, so it's not only just your pro sports as well. So if you love sport, it's the app you want.
It's the app you want, absolutely. So thank you very much for everyone who's been watching. I will be back. I'll be doing post-match reaction to the 2 New Zealand evening games. So that is the Crusaders versus the Blues on Saturday, and I've gone blank as to Chiefs versus the Reds on Friday night. So subscribe up there so you don't miss that. Down there is how you get to become a supporter of the channel, and over there are 2 videos that the artificial intelligence here at YouTube says you're going to enjoy. So go give them a watch.